Welcome to the Neighborhood Ford Store Steelers Extra Point.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome inside the KDKA TV studios. This is the Steelers Extra Point Show, brought to you by your Neighborhood Ford Store. Bob Pompeani will be joined here soon by Bryant McFadden. Chris Hoke is on assignment. It's actually his son's wedding, so we wish the Hokes all the best as they go through that today. And I'm sure he was keeping tabs on the Steelers and not too happy with what he saw. Bryant McFadden joins us. He has a very popular podcast, All Things Covered. He and Patrick Peterson together, and I'm sure you're going to have a lot to cover this week, B-Mac. First, let's talk about, this is one the Steelers had every opportunity to win, in my opinion. Could not make significant plays when called upon. Dorian Thompson-Robinson outplayed Kenny Pickett. I think that's one of the headlines of this story. Your take?
Yeah, looking at the numbers, Bob, Kenny Pickett, 15 to 28, 106. You know, he averaged 3.8 yards per throw. That's not winning football. You look at DTR, making his start, 24-43, 165. So it wasn't like he just blew Kenny away statistically, but he just made the timely plays. You know, he had an interception as well. But when you look at what we saw, the ebbs and flow of this ball game coming into this matchup, Bob, I think it's safe to say that touchdowns will be very, very difficult to come by. And we saw that for 4 quarters. And just the inability to make plays on the offensive side when your defense gives you extra possessions has been a reoccurring theme for our offense, and it showed up once again on the road against the Cleveland Browns today.
Yeah, it did. I mean, there weren't many pass plays down the middle of the field. Saw a couple attempts there at most. But bottom line, it seems like, again, the offense is too conservative, wanting to stay away from mistakes, which they did largely. They didn't make any, quote, mistakes that changed the game. But in doing so, I think it makes it very difficult to put together sustained drives, especially against good defenses. And make no mistake, this Cleveland defense is one of the best in the NFL. And aside from the Jaylen Warren 74-yard touchdown run, there was not much in this game to be happy about offensively. And
that Jaylen Warren play, was well designed. When you look at Broderick, sealing off the corner, he made Ozzie Newsome miss, and then he just outran everyone. And that's who he's been the entire season for us. And I think at some point in time, we got to look at getting him much, much more involved, Bob. Yeah. I think it's safe to say as well, he's our best offensive playmaker. He's our best offensive player right now, and he's not a starter. He's not a consistent guy in the reps in regards to what we do offensively, because when he has the football in his hands, good things happen. Even when things are not supposed to happen in regards to being positive, he finds a way to outwork the defenders. And we saw that for 4 quarters against one of the best defensive units in the National Football League in the Cleveland Browns. But yeah, I'm right there with you. You take away that long run, who knows how this game would have worked out in regards to being a close nail biter towards the end from what we actually saw.
Yeah, I tweeted earlier about him. He's like a supercharged sports car with a work ethic of a truck. He stiff arms guys. He makes you pay. He comes after you, despite his 5'8" stature. The guy's got a heart. And is it time to make him RB number 1? Hey, listen, I understand Najee Harris was a first-round pick, but when you come to the NFL and start playing, it's not about where you're drafted. It's about how you're playing, isn't it?
No question. I mean, let's look at his numbers today. 9 carries, Bob, for 129. 9 carries for 129. What his numbers have looked like, and how more productive would our offense have been if he had 10 extra carries, right? So I feel like when you look at our running back situation, they love to get both guys involved. But I'm also a believer in riding with a hot hand. You know what I mean? And allow these 2 players to determine who gets those opportunities. Because if Najee's the hot hand, we're going to ride with him. If Jaylen's the hot hand, we're going to ride with him. And both guys, they have to accept that, because that's the nature of our offense when it comes to finding ways to get some type of explosive-like production going. And we haven't been able to do that. So this was a game for Jaylen. I felt like he should have had at least 14 carries, at least 15 carries, along with what he provided in the passing game as well. Let me pull up his numbers. I think he had around, 3 receptions? You know what I mean? So that's a guy, when he's riding like that, and you talked about the engine, I call him the microwave, because he heats up fast. It doesn't take long for him to get going. As soon as he gets into the lineup, that microwave is on. You know what I mean? So we got to find ways to get him much more involved, because he clearly, when he's in a lineup for our offense is much better.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that, and we're going to get into the quarterback situation. We talk about quarterbacks all the time. I'm going to ask Bryant if it's time for a change there, given the lack of production that Kenny Pickett has delivered to this offense. And it was Cleveland that was missing their top quarterback, and they still won the game. So that is a problem. Still a lot coming on, and there's a lot to go in this season. So by no means are the Steelers, in a bad position, but they could have been in a much better position than they are after this game today. Mike Tomlin press conference is coming up. We're going to take you to that press conference in Cleveland at Cleveland Browns Stadium. We'll have that when we come back. We'll get more reaction from the locker room. Rich Walsh is in there, and we'll take your calls a little bit later. We're all getting started here on the postgame show. It's The Extra Point, brought to you by your neighborhood Ford store.
Welcome back to the neighborhood Ford store Steelers Extra Point.
Mike Tomlin has just gotten to the podium. Let's take you live to Cleveland post-game reaction.
For the field positioning component and thus the points component of it, because that's what you got to do when you play against a great defense in their venue. You're not going to drive the ball, 15-play drives and things like that. You need some chunks to comprise those scoring drives, and we knew that. We worked toward that. We just didn't connect on enough of them. And so we'll learn from this. We'll do so while absorbing the L, because that's what you do in this thing. And we'll be back. Elijah Riley had a high ankle. We have some other bumps and bruises associated with play. I'll give you more details on that the next time we're together. Questions?
Mike, when you got the ball with 142, 3 straight passes, any thought to trying to run the ball there? What was the thought process?
Move down the field and put ourselves in field goal position. And so when you're unsuccessful, man, there's a lot of latitude in terms of judgment, play selection, et cetera. We stand by what we did.
Mike, what do you have to do to get your offense going? One big play today, other than that?
They got a really good defense, man. They make a lot of offenses look like that, coupled with their venue. We got to give them some credit. We knew their reputation in week 2. Maybe the rest of the National Football League didn't. But it's kind of been confirmed in the weeks after that, and obviously they're really good today.
Mike, is Kenny missing some confidence right now?
No.
Anyone else?
What do you see with Kenny? It just doesn't seem to be clicking.
I think the Cleveland Browns had a lot to do with that. I'd be disingenuous, man, if I didn't compliment them on their players, their schematics, how they played today, the venue component of it. From an offensive perspective, there's a lot of things that were challenging today.
Some of the missed throws he had, was that a matter of a miscommunication with the receiver, like an overthrow to Beyonce, or is that what?
I don't know specifically what throws you're talking about. I'll let him speak for himself.
He was under pressure a lot today, Mike. You expect that from their pass rush, obviously.
Particularly environmentally.
Okay.
Mike, do you look at this and think should have gotten Jaylen more than 9 carries?
I don't. When you're unsuccessful, you can look back and make a lot of those type judgments, man. We don't live like that. We don't live in our fears. We don't second guess, man. We live. And so I stand by whatever decisions or play selections or ball distributions we had today.
Coach, your team 6 penalties compared to the Browns only having won the entire game. Some of those coming from the defensive side. Do you think that was maybe within lack of discipline or something being questionable, or just?
No, not at all. Not at all. Just football.
You're crediting the Browns defense for today, but the passing game has had some trouble getting going for the last month now. What do you think needs to change there?
I don't know if you could describe it as having a tough time getting going. Maybe we just have run it really effectively for the last few weeks.
Anyone else?
Mike, how difficult is it for an offense when they get quick pressure like they were getting?
You just got to work to stay out of one-dimensional moments and environments like this when they got dynamic rushers. And so there were some times where we were in one-dimensional moments in an environment like this versus dynamic rushers, and that's what happens.
Mike, how important has Jaylen Warren been to what you've done this year, and is that play sort of indicative of what he brings to the table?
He's been a significant component of what we do.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that's Mike Tomlin in Cleveland. He used the word environmental quite a bit, and yes, that's a tough place to play. But as an offense, you can silence those people by scoring some early. And, the one thing I took away from the first half, Bryant, was the fact that they did not even target Pat Freiermuth. It seemed like other than a couple of targets to their primary receivers, there wasn't a lot of, it was a lot of, check downs. And again, you recited the numbers, 77 yards passing total when you minus some of these things there. You just can't win like that. You got to do more. Despite the run game being good the last couple of weeks, they, aside from the one run by Jaylen Warren, they kind of shut it down.
Yeah, and that's the thing when you talk about playing against a divisional foe. Bob, on the road, a team that has a very, very well-respected defensive unit, it's imperative to start fast. And we didn't see that. You know, you look at the very first, offensive possession, I literally thought it was a safety. They kind of bailed us out. We kind of started behind the sticks early in that ball game. That led to great field position for the Cleveland Browns, and they were able to capitalize on that nice field position that was set up by their defense, and they put a touchdown on the scoreboard early in the first half. And that was something that would monitor and kind of linger with our club for 4 quarters because, as I mentioned to you earlier, touchdowns were going to be hard to come by in this type of ball games with 2 outstanding defensive units. But we didn't start fast. They started fast. DTR established confidence. And it seemed like defensively, some of the new faces that were requiring to play, it took some time for them to get things going. But the defense kind of gathered themselves, and they made things extremely sticky and gave us an opportunity to win the ball game. And these are the type of ball games where it's November, but in regards to December football and trying to play into January football, you look back in a game like this and say, man, this is the one we needed to have. Now, there's still a lot of football left to be played, but when you talk about playing against a third-string quarterback that it started off to be the number 2 quarterback, but of course he got demoted. P.J. Walker jumped him, and then now they gave him the baton. You got to find a way to win this ball game. You have to find a way to win this ball game. I care less about how good the Browns defense is. You have to find a way to win this ball game when you're playing against a third-string quarterback. Oh, by the way, Bob, he's a rookie as well.
Yeah, no question about that. And the other thing is, you know, when all these injuries occurred this week, a lot of people were talking, oh, look at the Steelers, the road's opening, everything. It's not that easy, but at the same time, because you're facing these kind of guys, and next week will be no exception, it's Jake Browning of Cincinnati. Unless they make a change, you're going to have the same sort of situation available to you, which means you better do something offensively. We have more interviews coming up. We're going to take your calls, but and we're going to talk about that safety, which I thought was a safety, and some of the calls in this game. But I want to ask about Kenny Pickett because he is not getting the job done right now, and we're going to talk about that in a second. I just understand that T.J. Watt's going to the podium, so we're going to interrupt ourselves, go there, come back, and talk about the quarterbacks right here on KDKA. Plus, let's go to Cleveland again.
And Mike said also the first couple drives, maybe communication was a bit of a struggle. Was that tough in those, especially given the environment to get guys set and you had new guys in different places, and you feel like things settled down after that?
Yeah, it just took us too long to settle down today. Once we did, I felt like we handled the run pretty well, and we were able to make some plays, but it just took too long to settle in.
TJ, what were you able to see from Michael Walker's first game up with you guys?
I mean, I thought he did some good things. It's too early. I'm not able to analyze anyone's play right now. I only know what just transpired for myself, so we'll have to look back at the film and see how it went. But overall, I felt like, we held them under 100 yards rushing, which is a goal. But we still need to find ways to create more splash, get off the field quicker, and provide better field position for our offense.
Jay, anything between the first half and the second half that you guys did obviously a lot more effective in the second half at everything?
I think it was just continuing to hone in the communication. When you have that many new guys, it's just a matter of calming down and just getting in the rhythm of the game. And like I said, I think it just took us too long to get into the rhythm. But once we did, we were able to play relatively effective football, obviously not enough.
It seemed like they were trying pretty hard to not put their rookie quarterback into tough situations. Is that frustrating when it seems like the ball was out quick a lot of the game?
Yeah, but we have to stop it. I mean, if he's able to just convert 5-yard throws all day, that's an issue as well. So teams have been doing that this season. It's just a matter of stopping it so they're not able to continue to do it, and that's the issue right now.
Thanks, TJ.
Good.
Good. All right. Thanks, everybody.
T.J. Watt, let's talk about the double trouble today. Each of these guys had 6 tackles, but 1 sack. Now, we've seen this, Bryant, in games where the Steelers have not won and rely heavily on their defense. If you neutralize their sack attack of these 2 guys, you have a good chance of winning. We saw it, in the Houston game for sure, and some of these other games too. There's a way to do it, and they could not get pressure at times on Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So, the bottom line is 10 games in, they're 6-4. They're in 3rd in this division. They're going to have opportunities to get better here, but they also have to do better on offense. So I want to get back to the quarterback situation there. And again, this is based on what I've heard. Mike Tomlin's not going to make a switch at quarterback, but should he? And I'm not suggesting that Kenny Pickett doesn't get a job back at some point. But in order to generate an offense and a spark, at times quarterbacks need to go to the bench and someone else has to come in. Have we reached that point with the Steelers?
I mean, if you were to ask the fans this question, I think it would be safe to say they would say they reached this point maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. Now, me personally, not knowing exactly the schematic side of things, I don't know exactly who's more at fault for the inability to see consistent offensive flow, right? Now, Matt Canada seems to be more comfortable on the sideline, and I think that's a big-time move having him on the sideline, but we're still not seeing the consistent flow of offensive production that we need to see to be a playoff-caliber team. But in today's matchup, Kenny is on the road. He's playing against an outstanding defensive team in the Cleveland Browns, but you still need to outplay DTR. You need to find a way to outplay DTR. And we saw some pretty good things, but then we saw some questionable things as well. The most important thing that I'm watching with Kenny is just his energy, his body language. You know what I mean? When you talk about having quarterbacks, that's the quarterback position, Bob, like it or not, it's a leadership position. You have to lead. You have to lead, and you have to lead not just through action, but verbally as well, and through your energy, because we all feed off that. We feed off your energy, and I'm not seeing a guy who's utilizing energy, giving the team juice on the sideline, getting people together. I understand you're in year 2, but you're the face of the franchise. It's your job to lead as such, especially in moments like this when you're on the road. Get the offensive guys together. Everybody needs to do a better job starting with me. Let's go. We're not losing this ball game. Galvanize the troops. Get everybody fired up, and that's not what we're seeing. And then if you talk about making a move, who do you go to? We've seen Trubisky get an opportunity, right? Heck, we don't know what Mason Rudolph has. We haven't seen him play in quite some time.
Chris Hoke is big time on to Mason Rudolph. He's been saying that pretty much all year. He said, let's go and see what this guy can do now. So,
And sometimes, Bob, the unknown might seem more appealing because we don't know. It's almost like if you go to Trubisky, we kind of know what we're probably going to get, right? A play here or there, maybe an untimely turnover. We're like, okay, well, that's what we kind of expect. But with Mason Rudolph, we don't know because we haven't seen him. And that might be more appealing than handing the baton off to Trubisky. But it seems like Kenny Pickett is going to be our guy, especially if he's healthy. And if that's the case, we still have the window of opportunity is there, but I need more from the young quarterback. Listen, man, let's go. On the sideline, Bob, you know, you watch football a lot, just like myself. I've been a part of the game for quite some time. When guys speak up and you're in a leadership type position, we listen. And that does something to the energy. Mm-hmm. We have energy on the defensive side. We just don't have that energy on the offensive side. And those two things those two components, they have to come together if you have any hopes of playing in January.
Yeah, and here's the thing. It's admirable not to make an interception, not turn the ball over. I get all that. But at the same time, I look at third down conversions the last 2 weeks. 30% on third down this week, even worse at 21% on third down. So at that point, things have got to get better, or else you do have to consider change. Kenny Pickett, speaking of him, he's at the microphone right now. We'll come back and continue this conversation in just a moment. Here's Kenny.
What's missing?
That's a great question. We have to get in and find out.
In the last series, the 3 and out, miscommunication with DJ on the deep ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had a couple miscommunications. You know, something that can't happen. We got to get it ironed out. Obviously, especially in a moment like that. We had some earlier in the game.
Is that a little concerning that it's this late in the year and those come up?
Say again?
Is it a little concerning that it's this late in the year and those?
It's always concerning whenever it comes up. You don't want to have that. You know, we just got to get it worked out.
Hey, what's the confidence level in yourself right now?
Always confident in myself. It's an ultimate team game. We got to come together and figure this thing out.
What do you feel like was missing, especially early, that you had in the last couple of weeks?
You know, some chunk plays to help us flip the field. You know, we need to stay on the field, be better in third down, but chunk plays definitely help there.
Kenny, some of the missed throws you had, I think there was an overthrow, especially to Deontay. Is that a miscommunication on the route, or was it something that the Browns were doing defensively that was?
Yeah, miscommunication on the route.
Was the plan not to take very many deep shots?
No, the plan was they play a lot of man-to-man. They didn't play a lot of man-to-man today, so they threw, you know, a lot of zone looks at us, different zone looks. We were expecting them to come in and play man. You know, we got to adjust better.
Kenny, I know you weren't getting chunk plays in the past game, but Jaylen Warren was giving you some chunk plays. I mean, you know, how much do you need to want to get the ball for this guy?
Yeah, we need to continue to get it to him, whether it's the pass game, the run game. The guy always makes plays, so it's awesome to have 30 in the backfield.
Their pass rush is obviously very good, but it seemed like it was an issue from the first snap. Do you feel like you guys maybe need to be doing something differently, or just giving the ball faster? What did you feel like?
They do that to just about everybody, man. We came in with a good plan. We thought it was a good plan. You just got to execute. I thought the RO line did a great job. I was trying to get the ball out as quickly as I could. We tried to keep them off balance with some draws and some screens. But they're a good front.
Kenny, with the success you were having with Jaylen, you got the ball back with 142, but then it was 3 straight passes. Was there much thought given to try to win?
In a 2-minute situation like that, obviously you want to throw it. There's always times with a stoppage the clock, you could pop a draw, you could pop a run to start back up, but in that moment, no.
Anyone else?
What happened on the 4th down keeper there where you lost your helmet?
Yeah, I got dirt. I think dirt kicked up my eye or something. Once they washed it out, I was good.
And even on the right side of a lot of these finishes, you get to the point where you just expect it to happen.
Yeah, but you got to go do it. Like I always tell you guys in those post game conferences after we get the win and those 2-minute drills and those fourth quarters, guys have to come together and do it. And today we didn't, so we got to learn from it.
As far as the communications or miscommunications, was the environment a factor at all in that? Was that a challenge?
It was a good environment. We were trying to run in and out of the huddle as fast as we can with the personnels and everything. Can always be better there.
I know it was terribly involved, but what was it like having Pat out there, back out there with you guys?
It was good. It was good to have 88, have him in the huddle. A lot of times over the middle, it felt like he was getting doubled with a back or with safety, whatever they may be. But it was definitely good to have him back out there.
All right.
Thanks, Kenny.
All right, Kenny Pickett after the game, and a losing effort today as they drop one 13-10. Last-second field goal by Dustin Hopkins put it away. You see the stats here, 93 yards or 98 yards, whatever that is. No touchdowns once again, no interceptions. And again, it's one thing not to make mistakes, but sometimes by not making mistakes or being too conservative, you don't pick up big plays. You don't try for the big plays. And so, Brian, I want to ask you about this. I'm of the belief that Mike Tomlin will not make a switch at quarterback, but they have to do something to come out better next week. What is it about his first 3 quarters? The Steelers lead the NFL in 3 and outs. And then in the fourth quarter, when he does get an opportunity, not so much today, but he normally turns it up a little bit. When you see those comparisons, what do you see mostly about his play in the fourth quarter versus the first 3 generally?
I think more it's about confidence or the lack thereof. The play calling is different in the fourth quarter from what we witnessed in past ball games that have led to more of a surgence of offensive production. And then the player seems to be different as well. I think Kenny might be at his best when he's not utilizing the huddle. Let's keep it real. I think sometimes, depending on the defenses we're going against, we're not good enough to huddle and time in and time out drive the length of the football field to get in scoring positions. So sometimes it's good to no huddle. If you go back and look at some of the defenses that I played against, that I played with in Pittsburgh, some of the offenses that were more successful, they didn't huddle. They utilized tempo. They went no huddle to try to kind of catch us off guard a little bit, and also to get us in vulnerable positions in regards to the personnel that we have on the football field based on what we're facing off against. And now if you look at the surges of production for Kenny from what we've seen in past ball games in the fourth quarter, they kind of utilizing tempo a little more, and the play calling is different. And maybe that should be something that we do more often. And I'm not saying utilize tempo to the level that we're not ready to go, but utilize tempo as getting to the line of scrimmage faster, and now just kind of dissecting what the defense is giving us so we can kind of put our guys offensively in positions to be more successful. Because I remember there's a drive or two in this ball game where we utilized tempo, but we kind of caught ourselves off guard, which is not the thing to do. So we got to figure out what makes Kenny Pickett feel more comfortable in our offense to get more production. Because right now, we're not getting that. And for us to be above 500, 2 games above 500, it's a blessing, because if you watch how we play football, it's hard to imagine that we're 2 games above 500. For us to still be in playoff contention is a blessing, because we've been finding ways to win ball games. But that's okay when you're going against a team that's not playoff worthy.
Yeah,
when you're playing against a team that has playoff aspirations, sometimes it's not going, more than none, it's not going to work out in your favor, and that's what happened today.
Yeah, and when you're relying on your defense to make plays every single week, that's going to run out at some point. You got to do it. And I agree. You sound like me. I've been saying about no huddle or do something to change the pace early in games. I wish they would, just to keep that defense off guard. We got to go to a break here. When we come back here, BMAC, we're going to have locker room interviews. Rich Walsh is in there for us. We're also going to take your phone calls, and we're going to talk about what lies ahead for the Pittsburgh Steelers and how do they change their fortune in some of these games now. Not much to write home about other than a 74-yard touchdown run by Jaylen Warren today, that was it. 13-10, Browns win on the final play, basically, of this game. So they jump ahead of the Steelers. We're back with more right after this on KDKA+.
Welcome back to the Neighborhood Ford Store Steelers Extra Point.
All right, welcome back. Bob Pompeani along with B-Mac. Bryant McFadden with us today. And you can see what happened today. Not much offense. There was a lot of punting going on. Ford got a touchdown, which I'm going to talk to Bryant about in a little bit because I didn't think that was a touchdown, but I also thought the safety was a safety, and I get confused sometimes about what the officials do. Then we have the touchdown or the field goal by Hopkins. The only touchdown the Steelers got was that 74-yarder, and that was it. Boswell with a 28-yarder, and then Hopkins wins it after Thompson Robinson moved them right down the field, and he did a very good job in that last 2-minute drill for them. So they end up winning 13-10. Cam Hayward spoke after the game. This is part of what he had to say.
You know, just need to get off the field by last time. You know, stop the run in some instances, but not enough.
And how frustrating is a loss like this?
Very tough one. You know, 13-10, winnable ball game. Tip your hat to them. They got the job done late. You know, we needed one more big play on defense and, you know, extended drive on offense.
Cam, anything you can put your finger on that last drive? Was the ball coming out quick?
that was the recipe of the whole game. You know, they're gonna try to minimize the exposure to the quarterback. You get the ball out quick, screens, draws. You know, we just got to be a little bit more ready for those moments.
And how hard is it to keep winning these close games like this?
It shouldn't be hard. It just happens. And we messed up. We didn't get the job done. You know, we got to learn from our mistakes. We got to grow. But, you know, we can be hard on ourselves, but there's more football to be played.
All right, that's Cam Hayward after the game. And largely, B-Mac, they did their job. You go on the road, I don't care, third, first, whatever quarterback they're dealing with, you limit them to 13 points. That's a winning performance, I think, for a defense in the National Football League. Your offense didn't get it done, didn't come close to getting it done. So I thought they did a pretty good job, first and foremost, with the run stopping part of this game, because Hunt and Ford largely kept in check, averaging 2.6 and 3.0 yards, respectively. I don't know. You can ask for more from them today.
And that's the thing for me. I understand when you talk about watching the game like we witnessed today, you want to say, I needed more, right? And that's what we always say as fans. Well, the defense needed to do this. The defense needed to do that. The offense, that's what we do as fans, right? But defensively, when you have the offense that we currently have, you have to do more. You have to. And that puts more pressure on your defense because now you start pressing to make plays because we haven't seen the consistent flow of our offense to believe that they can do it at this point in the season. And one thing that I want to hit on, Bob, the last drive, offensive drive for the Browns before the scoring drive that led to the game-winning field goal, right? When they punted the football, we received the football back with a little over 1 minute and 30 seconds or so, right? In my mind, the first thing I thought about was, well, we're going to have overtime, right?
Yeah.
I said, we're going to have overtime. We're going to win it with field position in overtime from our defense, off the back of our defense. But what happened was bad clock management from our offense that led to the Browns having more than enough time to drive to get into field goal range. And that's something you can't do. If you receive the football in the fourth quarter in the tie ball game on the road, two things happen. Either we drive the length of the football field to get in field goal range to attempt a game-winning field goal, or we pin them back and we go into overtime. Those are the only two options. It has to be. But guess what? We didn't utilize any time off the clock. If I'm not mistaken, Bob, refresh my memory, it was 3 straight passes, right?
3 straight, all incomplete, left 1:42 when they got the ball. And that's more than enough.
And one thing I know about football, I remember earlier in my career in Pittsburgh, it was a written rule in regards to anytime you play against the New England Patriots, and if you got them in a 2-minute situation, The first offensive play they were going to give you defensively was screen draw. Screen draw. That was, and the reason why it's screen draw, because they didn't want to put the ball in a position for the clock to not move. So if anything happens and you don't generate the first down that you need to generate, at least you're moving the clock, or you're making the opposing team do what? Utilize their timeouts. We ran 3 straight passes, did not complete 1 pass, did not utilize any time on the clock, and it was another bad punt.
Yeah, well, that's another issue we can get into. But you're right. They made it easy for Cleveland. They could have run the ball. I mean, you have 2 guys who are capable of getting first down yards, or at least keeping the clock moving, and they didn't do that. I want to get to Landon Roberts. He spoke after the game. We'll get back to that conversation after we hear from number 50 today, who was busy.
Like I said, you got to just tip your hats off to them. Like I said, when you playing this game and it's 2 good defenses on the field and whatnot, it's just a game of field position. Tips your hat off to them at the end. They made the necessary plays they need to make to get in field goal range.
A couple times you guys had to take a timeout where it looked like there were maybe 1 too many men on the field. Was that new guys in the mix? Was that the environment here, the communication? What can you attribute some of that confusion to defensively?
To be honest, personally, I don't even know. I didn't know why we had to take the time out. We had too many people on the field?
I think so.
That's what you're saying?
Yeah. It was like one of the first snaps of the game, and then it happened again second half.
I didn't know. I really can't comment to. I didn't know.
Was the environment challenging, just being that first 3 road games of the season, there were a lot more Steelers fans there probably than even the opposing team's fans?
I mean, when we on the field at home, bro, you can't hear nothing,
Yeah.
So any environment is hostile, but when their offense on the field, it's pretty, died down. Then when we at home, it's loud when the defense on the field. So, like I said, man, you just got to tip your hats off to them. We knew it was going to be a 60-minute game. You go back to when these 2 teams played way back in the day, man, it was these type of games. And like I said, you just got to tip your hat off to Cleveland. They came. I think both teams played a good 60-minute game, and they was able to capitalize at the end and kick a field goal to win.
You guys have won this type of game 6 times this year. How frustrating is it to be on the other side of that?
I think just in general, nobody want to lose. So it's frustration when you lose, but it's learning experiences too. So one good thing is that right now we're in a good position, so we can take this game and learn from it, and stuff like that. But it's November football, so we need to learn quick.
You guys had a lot of new pieces.
Yeah, learn quick. That's what they got to do. But, again, the defense, in my view, played a very good game today. I have no problems with it necessarily, except the end of it, but I blame that mostly on the offense not doing anything and giving Cleveland too much time. So Landon Roberts, busy man, 15 tackles. I thought Trenton Thompson played well. He almost had an interception. It looked like blinded by the sun a little bit. Joey Porter Jr., Alex Highsmith, and Cam Hayward in that tackle brigade. But, I was really surprised also that we did not see a lot of Cleveland trying the middle of the field with all the newcomers that the Steelers had in the middle, inside linebackers, and also Trenton Thompson, who I thought played pretty well. But they didn't do that. But at the same time, again, this defense was in a position to make plays. And had it gone to overtime, I think, like you, they probably had a pretty good shot at winning this game. But the offense, man, at the end, I couldn't believe that they didn't take any time off the clock. That's the last thing you want to do on this road trip.
Bob, like I said, 2 things happen in that situation. We drive to get into field goal range, or we punt, pin them back with no time on their side. That's it. And go into overtime, and now we tell our defense it's 0-0. We win through you guys. And that's okay. The defense they've been having that type of pressure on them the entire year. But that situation with moments left, that was the most critical drive for our offense, if you think about it, Bob, because we didn't utilize any time, 3 straight passes. They got the football back with more than enough time because of a bad punt, by the way. I don't know if it was a 20-yarder or a 30-yarder, but whatever it was, they gave them great field position with a nice kicker, by the way, in Dustin Hopkins, to be able to get into field goal range. So defensively, let me put you in the mind of defenders. When you go into that situation, you can't play the same way you were playing for 3 quarters, because if you're too aggressive, they easily get into field goal range. So what you want them to do is to kind of nickel and dime you, but because of that mentality and not wanting to press too much, you play more conservative defense. And that's what we saw. And then also, too, Cleveland, Kevin Stefanski, hats off to his offensive staff, because they were not going to allow Highsmith and Watt to determine the flow of this ball game. Nickel and dime, quick passes, which makes sense because you have a rookie quarterback playing against two outstanding edge rushers. So we're going to eliminate them out of the ball game based on our scheme. Nickel and dime. And that's what they did. Utilized Njoku a lot, Elijah
15
Moore,
targets on Njoku. That's right. I mean, that's all they did. And that's fine. The only problem I see with this is that the Steelers are doing the same thing with the same quarterback and a healthy roster basically now. And I don't understand that. Too much check down, too many. And I want to break it down a little bit further as we go to a break. We'll come back and talk about that and why it seems the play call seems to always go to the outside and not challenging down the middle of the field. A lot of good things can happen if you do that. We'll get into that when we come back as we continue with our Neighborhood Ford Store Extra Point. Soon we'll take your phone calls on a special edition of the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call as the Steelers drop to 6-4. Tough loss today, 13-10 in Cleveland.
Welcome back to the Neighborhood Ford Store Steelers Extra Point.
All right, now it's time to check out the JP Roofing final stats. And you can see the Steelers had trouble getting first downs. They had 9 punts today. They lead the NFL in 3 and outs. They were only 21% on third down conversions. Cleveland completed 24 passes for 163. The big rushing number was mostly because of 74 yards to Jaylen Warren. But the bottom line is they had their way with the Steelers on critical downs, especially late in the game. And speaking of big performances, Jaylen Warren spoke afterwards. He was our offensive star of the game, bar none. 9 carries, 129 yards, including the 74-yard only touchdown of the day for the Steelers.
Just a pitch. I seen somebody come downhill. You know, we always emphasize we got to make one guy miss. Made that happen. The blockers did the rest. I just ran, followed the blocks.
Jaylen, you guys have won these type of games 6 times this year. I mean, can you put it into words how frustrating it is to be on the other side of it right now?
I mean, yeah, it sucks. Obviously, you want a different outcome. But, you know, like the rest of us, you got to go in the lab and figure out what it is that we need to fix.
Jaylen, when you guys got the ball back, with the 142, you guys threw it 3 straight times. Did you think, were you surprised? Did you think maybe guys might run it there a little bit because of the success you were having?
I just trusted whatever Matt Canada, whatever the coaches were going to call, and I just knew we had to execute that play.
I feel like you guys are still in a good spot right now.
You know, probably, I don't know.
Just, you know, with
oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, you know, as a team, we don't let these kind of things get to us. It makes us stronger, so, yeah, we take it like that.
What did you see on that 74-yard touchdown run that you had? What kind of opened up that allowed you to make that play?
Receiver blocking the perimeter, made one guy miss, and like I said, it was the blockers. The blockers made it happen.
When you got that play, did you think that was going to be the start of a jump start for the offense that could kind of get you guys going?
I mean, I figured, like, you know, it's a momentum play, you know. Anyone could have done it. It would have pumped all of us up. So, yeah.
All right, that's Jaylen Warren, and his day was a good one. 9 carries, 129 yards, 14.3 average, 74 for the long. He only got 9 carries, though, and that's the one thing. And listen, Bryant, to continue this conversation about the running backs, listen, I think it's good to have both. They complement each other. But I also know, like you said, when you only limit your best runner, and he is their best runner right now, to 9 carries, that's not doing the team good in terms of using the guy who's the hottest. We saw Najee Harris in the game late, and Warren, after that big 74-yarder, was not in there as much as Harris was. So what do they do in the weeks ahead? They had a nice mixture the last 2 weeks where they split things up, and I prefer that. I think that's good. But I also do not want to ignore the fact that this kid is hot, and when he's hot, you got to ride him a little bit.
I think, the best way to handle both players, Harris and Warren, I agree, Bob. I think they complement each other extremely well. I think they can coexist in the same backfield, clearly not at the same time, but sharing reps. But sit both players down and say, listen, we respect both of you guys as quality runners for our offense. For us to go where we need to go, we will need you, but you guys determine how much you play. Simple as that. If you're hot, we're going to keep riding with you until you tell us you need a breather. If the other guy's hot, vice versa, the same thing. It's like what we witnessed with Warren after that long run. The next offensive possession, I need to see him out there. It's no different than going to the casino, hitting blackjack, winning, and walking away from the table. What do you usually do for all the gamblers that are watching us? If you hit blackjack, I'm going to sit here and maybe increase my bet, but I'm not leaving the table because I'm hot. My hand is hot. Jaylen Warren was hot. There's no reason for him to not see at least 15 to 16 carries when he had 9 carries for over 120. Against that defense, by the way, it's not like he was playing against the Little Sisters of the Poor. He was playing against one of the more respectable defenses in our league, in the NFL, and he was gutting them. Stiff arming players left and right. They didn't want to tackle him.
No.
And the thing I love about Jaylen Warren, it doesn't matter where you make contact with him, he's always falling forward. That is a positive trait to have for a running back. This guy catches a screenplay. Looks like it's a negative play. He turns it into a positive play. I agree. He is our best runner. And out of respect for both players, you need to that's our written rule. Whoever is hot will be in there. And you come out when you are tired. And that's how I thought it should have been today. But for whatever reason, they kind of went back to the rotating, to say the least. And I don't know if that was best in today's matchup against this type of defense.
And undrafted or not, if you're putting up numbers, you definitely have to be in there a lot more, and he's earned that opportunity. I think Najee Harris, as a captain of this team, would understand that, probably would be honest with you and say, yeah, at this point, sure. At least he should. Another mistake today, I thought, was only 1 target for Pat Freiermuth. We made a big deal about him coming back, opening up at the middle of the field. He had 1 target, 1 catch, that's it. He spoke after the game.
Got to look at it and go from there.
How does this team get the rhythm that they're missing? I know you guys have talked about execution all year, but how can you get a rhythm?
Yeah, just in practice, honestly, that's the only thing we can do. Talk about it, talk about the things that we need to do, and execute it. It goes back to practice. We have to feel comfortable with each other.
That's the first time you guys have been on this side of these close games. Just how frustrating is it? You guys are so used to doing that at the end.
Yeah, that's right where we wanted them. We felt comfortable at the end of the game. It just didn't happen today. We just got to continue to, get ourselves in situations. We feel confident that we can win the game in those situations. The defense did a great job getting into it in good field position. We just got to make our plays and execute.
They have a pretty good defense. Was it maybe more what they did or you guys didn't do today?
Yeah, no, they got a good defense for sure. But we pride ourselves on being able to do what we want to do on offense. We gotta do that better than we did today for sure. But that hell of defense hats off to them. But we can be better on offense.
How much of a spark is Jay?
Yeah, Jay's unbelievable, man. Took that long run to the house to start the second half. That was big for us, and all the little screens and dump offs. He makes them shake all the time, so it's big for our offense.
I know it wasn't about them. You wanted to have you two out there.
Felt great. Obviously, it would have been a lot better with a win, but I feel good where I'm at.
All right, he says he's feel good. He's 100% back from his hamstring, and I believe that. And if that's the case, why wasn't he utilized more?
I don't know. I've been calling for more targets from my tight ends the entire season, especially with Pat out of the lineup. We drafted a avatar in the 3rd round in Darnell Washington, who filled in a lot for Pat when he was out with his hamstring and didn't get any targets. I mean, he's 6'7". He should be it should be a requirement to target him in the red zone, fade route. He's a mismatch for any defender. We just didn't see that. And then when you bring in Pat Freiermuth, who I believe is a nice asset to our offense, he only sees 1 target. So either 2 things, right? Either Kenny just didn't really focus in on him in certain situations, or Pat is not healthy. That's why we didn't see the opportunities that we think he's deserving of seeing. But for whatever reason, the cupboard isn't bare with our offense. We have talent. We got wide receivers. We got tight ends. We're just not seeing that said talent surface week in and week out in the stat sheet for our team, or helping us be in position to win ball games for whatever reason. I mean, you can blame this person or that person, but it's not surfacing the way we think it should surface. We got running backs, we got wide receivers, we got tight ends. Offensive line had a rocky day today, but yet and still they've shown the ability to do what they need to do for us to be successful. It just hasn't worked out for whatever reason. And this was a tough ball game because we played against a 3rd-string quarterback, a rookie. You can't lose. You can't get outplayed by a guy in a DTR, a rookie. You can't lose to him. And it happens. I know the National Football League is a competitive league, and there's no such thing as a for sure win. Bob, let's keep it real. There's a such thing as more than likely win.
Especially
Or
with
this
all these.
should be a win.
Right. I mean, if you break it down even further, Pittsburgh on offense was basically healthy. You had everyone there that you needed. Yeah, the offensive line did not have a good game, but they were all there, all the wide receivers. Freiermuth's back, 2 healthy running backs, and your starting quarterback. They, on the other hand, Cleveland had a third-string quarterback. They had they were missing 3 offensive linemen, 2 tackles, and they were missing Nick Chubb. So if you go in there and you limit them to 13 points, this is why I thought it was frustrating. They had to score more, and this offense continues to be a problem. We're going to talk more about that and look ahead to Cincinnati because that's up next, and they're going to face the same sort of defense. Maybe not as good as Cleveland, but a pretty good defense. Even without Joe Burrow, they're going to have to score points. How do they do it? We'll talk to Bryant about that when we continue. Later, we'll take your calls at 412-575-2600. The sun is setting on what was a beautiful day here, but not so much in Cleveland. The final score, 13-10. Steelers dropped to 6-4 with a big game at Cincinnati next week. We'll talk about it next.
Welcome back to the Neighborhood Ford Store Steelers Extra Point.
All right, welcome back. Bob Pompeani and B-Mac, Bryant McFadden with you as we take a look at the AFC playoff picture. And honestly, after all the injuries this week, a lot of people thought the Steelers had a shot at winning a division. They still do, but this loss hurts in that regard. Anytime you're in a wild card, that means you got to go on the road and play someplace. And at this point, they are the last wild card team hanging on ahead of Indianapolis, who they play coming up, Cincinnati next week. And it gets thicker and more difficult as that road continues. Mason Cole spoke today, and he normally is a good spokesperson for the offensive line. Let's hear what he had to say in Cleveland after the game.
We find balance in the run game, and then we have trouble throwing the ball. It's just it's unfortunate, man. It's a good defense. We had a good game plan. It's just we executed at a high level, and hats off to them.
Hey, so what do you have to do to get the pass game going?
I mean, from our standpoint, we just got to protect her. These games are intimate. You're playing divisional games, and first play of the game, we let up a sack. And we're backed up on the half-yard line, so we got to do our part in the pass game and protect, so receivers can get open, so Cutting can go through his reads, and it all plays within each other. We got to do our part.
Did they do anything with their defensive alignment on that last series that discouraged you guys from running?
With 2 minutes left?
With the 3 incomplete passes in a row.
Yeah. Well, no, we had one timeout, like a minute 50 left when we got the ball. I think in those situations you got to look down the field and you got to look to the pass game. I mean, hindsight's always 20/20. Do we wish we handed the ball off and ripped a 30-yard run? Of course, but it didn't happen.
You guys have done a much better job. I think a lot of people said regarding containing and limiting Myles Garrett the last time you guys met. It's kind of different today. Was there anything he brought out of the box that wasn't expected, or he just had the better end today?
No, I think it was just they had a good game plan. They were bringing some pressure from his side, so when we were chipping them, the chip was minimized because he was slanting inside, and without looking at the film, I think they just had a good game plan. And we didn't execute enough.
But you have a young quarterback.
I thought they were, pretty much dominated early in this game. It started right from that first play where Kenny Pickett looked to have a tackle in the end zone. Myles Garrett gets the sack. It should have been a safety. So two-part question. How does that happen on the very first play? He's in shotgun. Is that the right call, Brian? And also, why didn't Cleveland challenge that play? I thought that was, first of all, the official on the field should have called it a safety. He missed that call.
Yeah, that's the thing. What led to the potential safety was their best defender basically came through scot-free, 95 Myles Garrett. That's the one guy you want to devote attention to, similar to what they were doing to our guy in T.J. Watt. You don't allow 95 to disrupt the ball game that early, Bob. No, the sense of urgency got to be there, right? I think Cleveland went 3 and out or whatever the case may be, but they punted the football. It's a great opportunity to jumpstart this flow for the Steelers. Find a way to either sustain first downs, drive the length, get in field goal range, or put points on the scoreboard, or flip the field position. Something. But you allow their best defender to basically disrupt the ball game in the beginning of the ball game. And then, as you mentioned, I'm surprised they didn't challenge that safety, because I literally thought it was a safety. I was jumping for joy when they said it wasn't a safety, but I literally thought it was a safety. And that just kind of was I know Dick LeBeau used to tell us all the time, when I was there in Pittsburgh, mostly to the defensive guys, he said the two most important possessions for a ball game is the very first possession and the first possession after halftime, because that can jumpstart momentum, especially if you're on the road. Those possessions, the first possession offensively and defensively, can jumpstart you to be in a prime position to win a ball game or to put yourself in position to win ball games. And that, the way Cleveland started the game and the way we started the game, that's how the game ended. But flopping it, their offense was on the football field and our defense was on the football field for that final field goal attempt that led to a game-winning kick for the Browns. So those are things that you got to get out of the locker room. The sense of urgency got to be there, especially when you're in a road playing against a rivalry, a divisional foe. If you got an opportunity to start fast, you take advantage of it because it's momentum, and you need that momentum on the road.
Absolutely. And right off the bat, he got right around Dan Moore, it looked like, and he was in the backfield before Kenny Pickett had a chance to do anything. All right, let's take a look at the Ford road ahead, because it will be a bumpy one, no doubt, even with injuries to Joe Burrow at Cincinnati. Anytime you go to Cincinnati, that's a tough one. Then they have 2 home games, and these, to me, are going to be the key. Actually, if you look at they're going to face 3 of the next 4 opponents backup quarterbacks, and yet today they did 2 and they lost. So be careful what you wish for there. But Bryant, how do you see these next 4 games, 2 at home in a span of 4 days with that Thursday night game?
To keep it real, Bob, you don't know. You don't know. Before Sunday's matchup, being a part of the organization as a former player or as a fan or as a media analyst who covers a team, you felt great. We all felt great because of the quarterback conundrum that the teams that we're facing, that they were dealing with. And seeing what happened today, you don't know what to expect. Will we see more offensive production? We've been waiting for that the entire year. We've seen glimpses here or there, but will we see that for 4 quarters? We don't know. Will we see 3 quarters of inconsistent flow and then 4th quarter of consistent flow? We don't know. Defensively, will they make enough plays to put us in positions to score if our offense is not doing what they need to do, right? And that's something that we've been able to hang our hat on, but let's keep it real, Bob. We're dealing with so many injuries on the defensive side. We're not getting that full force of production that we've grown accustomed to seeing from our defense because you got new guys playing new places, and it takes time. And hats off to TA and his staff today because we were shorthanded. We were missing how many starters? 4 or 5 starters?
4
like
on
that?
the defensive side, yep.
4. And people can say, well, you played against Dorial Thompson-Robinson. Yes, but you only allowed 10 points until that game-winning field goal. And the 10 points that really surfaced was great field position they had that luxury of having because our special teams unit didn't show up.
Right. No, you're absolutely right about all of that. And the bottom line is they need to change that quickly next week. We talk about fast starts on the road at Cincinnati. The last thing you want is one of these kind of, quagmire quicksand games where it's still 3-3 late and this kind of stuff can recur. All right. We have plenty more coming up. We're going to turn it over to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. So B-Mac and I will take your phone calls next. All you have to do is call us at 412-575-2600. We'll get those next right here as we continue post-game Steelers coverage on KDKA+.